Hello, everybody. This is D.FINED, and I am with the D.FINED Engagement BookCast. I talk to engaging people, mostly authors. Today is a special day for me. We're talking with Tom Peters, the one and only. He's an author, consultant, entrepreneur. He's a leadership shaman, and he is a force of nature. Tom's authored 19 books, but we're going to be talking about his latest book. It's Excellence Now, Extreme Humanism. Tom Peters, it's my pleasure, my privilege. I'm stoked to be talking to one of my gurus. Thanks for being with me today. Enjoy, everybody. Welcome, everybody, to the D.FINED Engagement BookCast. My name is D.FINED, and I have Tom Peters in front of me, virtually, but in front of me, and I'm just so pleased and proud and excited to have you with me today, Tom. You are one of my heroes, and you're going to see, I'm going to give a personal introduction to you, and you'll see kind of how you have influenced me in my life over the years. You may not believe it when I tell you this stuff. So here we go. I was an undergraduate liberal arts major, theology to be exact. When I got into Tulane University's MBA program, the first business-related book I ever bought was Tom Peters' first book, In Search of Excellence. In my first job as a civilian after being a naval officer, I stumbled upon a phrase that Tom used in his 1994 book, The Tom Peters Seminar, Crazy Times Call for Crazy Organizations. The phrase was, become a thunder lizard evangelist in whatever you are pursuing. I think he was quoting Guy Kawasaki. At that time, we were working on an improving customer service at a renowned medical enterprise in New Orleans. It wasn't long before my team and I were sending plastic lizards and lizard jigsaw puzzles through the inter-office mail to all our leaders, exhorting them to become a TLE themselves. While working in New Orleans, I had the pleasure of hearing Mr. Peters twice. I could only describe the experience as similar to watching a caged tiger moving back and forth with power, presence, and occasional roars. I saw Mr. Peters live and up very close as he bounced around the room and even getting in between the audience's tables, again, up close and personal. Yes, he shouted at us at times to only make his points. When I got to my next job in Augusta, Georgia, I gave each of my new team a copy of Tom's 1991 book, The Professional Services Firm 50, Reinventing Work, 50 Ways to Transform Your Department, quote, department in quotes, into a professional service firm whose trademarks are passion and innovation. I was the new director of organization development and professional learning, and I wanted to make a difference and inspire my team to think of our work and our department in a different way. I initiated service evaluations for all our internal departments, such as finance, purchasing, environmental services, food service, HR, and yes, my department. Actually, we reigned supreme in all those surveys. At this same hospital where I worked, I started an underground event I called the BOSS Project. BOSS stood for Blowing Off Steam Socially. These were after-work events where anyone in leadership could call a BOSS Project meeting at any time, at any friendly watering hole of their choice. I sent the anonymous invitation to all leaders in the org, including the C-suite and the CEO. People were not amused, and the invitation to the first BOSS Project became an item for the senior leadership meeting agenda. Blowing off steam apparently was a subversive idea. I would have never done such a thing unless I believed that doing it was in keeping with the Tom Peters attitude about trying new things, taking risks, and enjoying the ride of work and life. Almost done, Tom. Later at another hospital, I was compelled to ask a question that needed to be asked of our CEO to benefit the learning of the 120 other leaders at an offsite retreat that I was responsible for. He was entirely too thin-skinned, shared his unhappiness with me, with the question, and I was fired 4 days later. Maybe I can blame Tom for that, but the question had to be asked. I view Tom Peters as a rare force of nature. His passions and belief about doing things, calling out bullshit when he sees it, are his trademark. I looked up the word juggernaut as I was trying to find a good word to describe him. It means an overwhelming or unstoppable force. Tom Peters has been a cattle prod in my work life, always encouraging me to experiment, try new things, to look skeptically at celebrity business execs, and to forge my own path despite any setbacks. Oh yeah, and I love and appreciate the be there for my people. I've failed a lot over the years too, have not come close to being super successful in much. I have gotten in my own way and done a number of stupid, ill-advised things over the years. But Tom has been an ever inspirational man to keep me moving and make a difference in what I'm doing. I'm here to talk with Mr. Peters about his 19th book, Excellence Now, Extreme Humanism. He described it as his memoir and says outright that it will be his last book. So it's sort of like his last will and testament to his readers and his readers to come. Tom will be remembered and his work read in the future, no doubt. So we better get this book, devour it, and do something with it. If not now, then when? If not now, then never. And that would be, like in Tom's words, a damn shame. Welcome, Tom Peters, to the D.FINED Engagement BookCast. Again, welcome to this little room where we can chat for a few minutes. Thank you for being here.
Well, you're making it incredibly hard for me to respond. That was, I mean, I'm almost teary-eyed. That was, I don't
It's all true. It's all true.
It's, you know, anyway, I really, really, really appreciate that.
You know what? There are a lot of people that feel that way. You know that. You know, I just know that that could be said by many, many other individuals in business in the country and around the world. So I'm just one of them. But you have been hugely.
Yeah. And one thing, you saying it by a factor of 100 to 1. I would rather have that comment from you than from the CEO of a Fortune 25 company. Mm-hmm. I didn't write the damn book for him. And, you know, I said to somebody, I was going through piles and piles and piles and piles and piles of stuff, and including some where people had said nice things. The only notes and letters that I saved were the ones from school principals and fire chiefs, mm-hmm. and even the occasional priest and preacher, mm-hmm. including the number 2 guy in the Episcopal Diocese in New York City. And it's those lives. That's my aim. And also the other problem, frankly, is that last time I heard there are only 500 CEOs of the Fortune 500. And I'm much more, well, I want to say, there are a couple things I say. I'm going to react to that. The other reason, in a way, that you were my target audience, mm-hmm. is that book, The Professional Services Firm, mm-hmm. 50. Mm-hmm. It was probably my worst seller. Yeah. And it was, now here's the most arrogant phrase you've heard in a long time. If it had been a bestseller, we could have kept millions of American jobs onshore instead of sending them offshore. Yes, sir. Because it's, I mean, what do we call a department? We call it a cost center. We call it overhead, as in the, oh God, what was it that we did? There was some kind of consulting project. I don't remember what it was at McKinsey. And it was basically, we were there to give CEOs cover for cutting their staff.
Yeah, we even called it right sizing, didn't we?
Yeah, no, absolutely right sizing. It was so pathetic. Mm-hmm. And, you know, and I really believed, as I said, that any 7-person or 77-person quote unquote department could become a superstar value adder, doing work outside the firm's edges, turned on people. And it is always flat out pissed me off that one was not the best. That's the only one I want to be a bestseller.
Wow. Wow.
So,
well, I think I bought 7 copies for you, Tom. So
I'll say 2 more things about your introduction.
Yeah.
Relative to the speaking style, there was a Financial Times review of my reimagined book in 2003, and part of their line was, as a speaker, he's a combination of Billy Graham and Sid Vicious.
Yeah.
Other than your remarks a couple minutes ago, doesn't get any better than
Cage
that.
Tiger. Yeah. Yeah.
And the final remark I'll make, which is really important, is, when we started the book, a lot of the reason it sold well is the Japanese were beating the crap out of us, and the Americans at that point weren't used to being beaten up. And so I got to know a fair amount, including through a very good friend, about Japanese companies. And we think about Japanese companies as rigid and hierarchical, and it's true, comma.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether this is true in 2021. So,
Right.
Forget about relevance. In the old days, they had a ritual. And the ritual was, you're the boss, I'm the member of the HR department or finance department. On Friday afternoons, we would go out drinking. And the following 2 characteristics: 1, we would get shit-faced drunk. And 2, it was to let off steam, and really let off steam. I mean, I would look you in the eye as my boss, and I would call you a son of a bitch and the most miserable bastard on earth. And that was a ritual. And and it was a ritual, but nonetheless, it worked to a significant degree. And so your boss thing you wanted to do, I think, is absolutely fabulous, and zero surprise at the low receptivity.
Oh, well, we are in the buckle of the Bible Belt too, so that didn't help, but they really got paranoid about blowing off steam. It was like, that's, if they're blowing off steam, they're saying something bad about us, and they didn't like that. So hey, Tom, I actually
anyway, we can go on to the so-called meat, but I just wanted to tell you that.
Well, I appreciate it, honestly. I'll send you a couple of things that I produced way back when. I'll just email them to your staff, and you can see it, because I couldn't sleep last night, so excited to talk to you. So I went back into my archives and found some flyers and stuff, the original flyer of the Boss Project. So,
cool.
It is cool. Okay, so we don't have much time, but tell me, you get pissed off still that there are a lot of people that don't listen to you, don't buy your books, continue to practice antiquated Neanderthal companies, all ego, no giving credit to the people that really do the work, all that. It's still going on. And I heard you talk with Mark Crowley. He's the one that wrote Leading with the Heart.
Yeah.
And he asked you, Tom, why aren't they listening? Why aren't leaders listening to you? Why aren't they listening to us? Why? And even in your book, Extreme Humanism, you go, I don't get it. Why aren't you getting this? And you actually say, I'm begging you to do this and be this for your people. I'm begging you. And what's in the way? What has gotten in the way? And we're going to have to keep working to change cultures and things. But it must be very discouraging for you that your whole life advocated for a different way of leading, and still we're suffering from the same kind of stupid mistakes and the arrogance of leaders.
Well, there are a lot of ways to respond. I did say I was discouraged that I didn't launch a tidal wave. But another part of me isn't discouraged because of what you said in the introduction. I described it to somebody one time. I said, when Tony Robbins gets in a room with 1,000 people, he expects to change 1,000 lives, as did Billy Graham. When I get in the room with 1,000 people, if 4 people come out of that seminar and say, I mean, my favorite comment that I've had people come up to me after the seminar, my favorite comment of all is, "Thank you. I don't feel as stupid as I did anymore."
Oh, yeah.
And so I don't plan on batting 1,000. I don't even plan on batting 100. But there's something, and you may know the answer to this. There's something in Israel, maybe it's in Jerusalem, where if you save one life, you plant a tree.
Yeah, right.
And I don't think that's exactly right, but it is directionally right.
I remember you saying in your talk, if I'm wrong, let me know. But I think you said, if you don't get anything out of this day, just go do one thing. Go make one little change Monday morning.
Yeah.
And get going, because that's how it works. But you did say that, right?
Yeah. Well, and my slightly more modern equivalent,
yeah,
which actually wanted to be the title of my prior book, not this one, is "Excellence is not a hill to climb. Excellence is not an aspiration. Excellence is the next 5 minutes."
Yes, sir. Right.
And I mean, one example of that, and I checked my outrageous comment out. I wrote, tweeted, I said, "If Mr. Boss, if you will give me a sample of 10 line emails that you have written, I can do a complete, technically accurate psychiatric diagnosis of you as a person."
Oh my.
And I have a friend who's a big deal psychiatrist, and I said to him, I said, "Steve, is that a load of BS or not?" And he said, "It's a load of BS, but not by much." And I mean, let me give you the tiniest story. There was an issue that came up, and my wife and I are not youngsters, and we need people to help us, figure out how to use the royalties that you and your friends have provided, take care of our kids, and so on. So there was a problem, and so we got a new financial advisor.
Right.
And when I would get emails from them, her in particular, who was the one who was taking care of our business, the email would always start out, "Hi, Tom, comma, space, hope things are going well." This is long before the pandemic.
Right.
And then after the professional commentary, she would say, "Take care of yourself, give Susan my best, comma, Barbara." And what I realized, it was like a light bulb going off. I don't do that. In the average email, it's, "Let's get down to business. Don't spoil the crap. We got to do it. We got a deadline. The deadline's coming up this afternoon. You're going to make the deadline. You're not going to make the deadline." It's just total hard ass, unemotional. And I thought, OMG, this little touch is not trivial.
Right.
It humanizes the whole thing. Why don't people do it? I have some theories, and I've heard other theories. One, and unfortunately we don't have time to go into all this stuff, is that the average boss is insecure as hell. And I suspect there's some truth to that. Yeah. And second one, the other one that I would say, and it is hyperbole to some extent, too damn many of the bosses went to business school. Yeah. And the business school model is spreadsheets beat human beings any day. And I've said in the book, and you've heard me say it probably at speeches, my life in 6 words is: hard is soft, soft is hard. The hard stuff, the numbers, the plans, that's all abstractions.
It could be gun decked, huh?
Yeah,
the hard stuff can be gun decked.
Multi-trillion-dollar recession in 2006 because there were derivatives of derivatives of derivatives, and at the bottom, excuse my language, there was nothing but shit. And the numbers look good on a spreadsheet. The reality was it was a dung heap. And then the other one is the other side, which soft is hard, we call relationships soft. Yeah. What a crock of crap. Right. The essence of life, pre-artificial intelligence, post-artificial intelligence, is the set of relationships that I carry around. And, I do it because I enjoy our conversation, but I do it for pragmatic reasons. If I work on a project with you and the 7-week project is over and I'd like to work on another good project in the company, what's the best determination of whether I'm going to get a good project? It's going to be the relationship you and I have.
Yeah.
You go to your friend, Mary, and you say, oh my God, I had Tom Peters on my project for 7 weeks. You wouldn't believe his attitude. You wouldn't believe the quality of work.
Yes, yes.
And I end up on Mary's great project team.
Yes.
And so that's the real hard stuff.
I want to read a quote from your book. You're talking about evaluations, employee evaluations, let's say. And you say, effective evaluations emerge from a series of loosely structured, continuing conversations, not from filling out a form every 6 months or a year. And that's really what I get some, I get happy when I hear about this whole idea of having regular one-on-one meetings with your people every week without fail. It's their meeting. You provide your time as a leader, but they get to come in and you build that relationship. It's not about the nuts and bolts. It's about, goosing the people so they feel good about you as a boss and they feel good about their work. And it's all relationship. So you're totally on the right track with extreme humanism.
And it shows up on the bottom line.
Yes.
There's a quote from John DeJulius, who's a customer service guy and ran a big chain of, I think it was health spas. It started and ran a big chain of health spas. And his one-liner, which sounds like a gooey thing, isn't? He said, remember, your customers will never be any happier than your employees.
Yeah.
And that's biblical, in its power, and it's absolutely true. I hope, and it will be true to some extent, I hope to a big extent, I hope that the things I've talked about, that you've talked about, that we're talking about, will be embedded to a significantly greater degree post-pandemic than pre-pandemic. That to make it through the pandemic with our team, we've got to pay attention to them as individuals.
Yeah.
And here's my pandemic lesson, and I'm deadly serious about this. I'm your boss, and you're on my team of department of 15 people, and life remains complex. And so we've got 3 or 4 Zoom meetings a week. And we've now been doing the Zoom meeting thing for a couple months. And you and I are having a virtual hallway chat.
Yeah.
I say to you, I got a problem with you. And my problem is that we have had 23 meetings and you've showed up on time for all 23 of them. And I said, that pisses me off. I do it with a smile. And I said, listen, you and I have gotten to know each other over these last couple of years. And I know you have a mother who's in an assisted living place who needs a hand. And I know your wife is a 3rd grade teacher and she's actually teaching from the 2nd floor of the house. And, to use crude language, there's a lot of shit going down.
Yes.
As far as I'm concerned, I want you to be late to every meeting. I want you to skip meetings. I want you to take care of your family, including your moms. And don't think about second digit productivity.
Right.
And obviously smiling, and I'm not going to give you a bad grade for that, but it's, I want, and the thing then, as we both know, is, crudely speaking, I just boosted the hell out of my team's productivity.
Yes.
You will walk through fires for me.
Absolutely.
After that. And that's not why I'm doing it, because I couldn't have pulled it off unless it was an intimate conversation based on a decent relationship. But that is the reality.
Well, I want to, when you were in Vietnam, I bet your people said, yeah, Seabees are famous for can do easy, right? We had a CV battalion, little battalion at Naval Station, New York, when I was there. As a lieutenant commander, leading it, a young little bald ensign that was the ensign of these guys, and it was always can do easy. And so I think that you led that way. You've probably had to learn a lot since, but you knew you weren't going to get anything out of people with just ordering them around kind of thing. It's just,
well, there's several ways to answer that. Number one, I got lucky.
Yeah, you had a great CO.
Incredible commanding officer who I consider to be my most significant influence in my life, including my mom and dad.
You said that in your book.
Yeah, and then the night we arrived in Vietnam, he got all us little pissant 24-year-old junior officers together, and he said, boys, I want you to have a good deployment over the next 9 months. And he said, I'll tell you what the key is. You will do whatever your chief petty officers tell you to do, and if you don't, I'm going to hear about it.
I know.
And
yeah.
So that was the beginning. The second thing I would say is, unfortunately, what you said is to a significant degree wrong. I came into Vietnam after a wonderful 5-year engineering course at Cornell. I had no leadership training.
Right.
I did not treat the people who worked for me particularly well. And I learned the hard way. In fact, I went after my deployment, I think this was in the book too, I went back to Cornell and went into the civil engineering dean's office, and I will not sailor's language I used, but I said, you screwed me.
Yeah.
If I come out of Cornell with a degree after 5 years, guess what? Within 6 months, I'm going to be a project manager of something, some little construction project. And the moment I become a project manager, in my entire life is about people, not structural engineering.
Yeah.
And I was completely unprepared, and I was mad about it. But there's another related story that, again, with your Navy background, you'll appreciate. I got an email from a guy sent to me by somebody else, and he said, if I talk too much service stuff that needs translation, you can sort it out for me. As a junior officer, he came on board a supply ship.
Yep.
And his commanding officer, new commanding officer, got him together for the first conversation. And he said, Tom, I know you're well trained, and I know you know how to do your supply corps job. He said, I am not going to evaluate you on how well you do your supply corps job. I am going to evaluate you solely on how well the young enlisted men who work for you do. How many of them get promoted? How many of them take educational courses? He said, that's my evaluation, 100% of it. How do the people you are in charge of grow during the 12 or 18 or 6 months they work for you? And I thought that was just awesome. I mean, I love the part. You're trained as a supply corps officer. You know the technical half of your job. You know, I'm not going to pay any attention to that because I expect you to do the damn thing.
And that mentality is totally transferable to business and organization.
Business or anything else, you know, Tom, to nonprofits.
Shelley is probably showing her watch right here and going, these two men won't listen to me, haven't listened to me. So I have to honor her request. And
well, you got to mainly, but she tries to just be damage control. I'm more than happy for us to go on for a little bit.
Really?
As she warned you, I've talked too much. So
Shelley, you're okay with this? Blink once if you're okay with this, because Tom, it's thrilling to be with you, and I want to share with you another thing that came from your experience and from your writing. It was really about how to. Well, here we go again. It's like treating people like they matter, like they're not just a number. They have their own desires of growing, and it's our job as leaders to, water them and get the most we can by them developing themselves in the way they most want to, with challenges at work, with their personal lives and that kind of thing. You most business leaders make that huge distinction between personal life and work life. And I've heard it my whole career. You don't bring your personal stuff to work, blah, blah, blah. That's just the old school Neanderthal way of saying, I don't really care about what's going on in your life. That doesn't matter to me. It's here it is, nuts and bolts, profit and loss. And here we are. We're still, people are still operating that way.
Yeah. And again, as I said, listen, I'm preaching capitalism, not Marxism.
Right.
What I mean by that is, and God, there are truckloads of evidence. Yeah. If you pay attention to people in the long term, you grow and you make money. Now, it's just, I'm not a softie. I'm a balance sheet guy. I want your balance sheet to be better. Take care of your people. They'll take care of your customers, and the customers will take care of the cash flow. And that's the part I think that bugs me the most, frankly.
Yeah.
I want to add, because Shelley is going to cut us off. I just did a tweet. I've got some master slide presentation with everything I've ever done, which is 4,000 slides long. But I just did a tweet, and the tweet I said, here is my favorite quote of all time.
Mm-hmm.
And is from Henry Clay, this American statesman. Courtesies of a small and trivial character are the ones which strike deepest in the grateful and appreciating heart.
Beautiful.
And the wonderful thing that could, be biblical on the one hand. I call myself, incidentally, I don't darken that many church doors. I call myself lowercase r religious. and every message I'm talking about will work as well for an atheist as it will for a Catholic who goes to mass 6 times a week at 7 a.m.
Yes.
But the little thing is it's always the little touch that you remember. And I get sick and tired sometimes of revolution, disruption, destruction. You're only going to master the disruption if there are a lot of people who are pulling together and trying to grow together. I used not a quote, it was a quote out of a book, but it was about Doug Conant, who was the CEO of Campbell Soup for 10 years. And during the 10 years, he penned, and by the word penned, I mean hand wrote 30,000 thank you notes to employees. And I did the calculation, and it's something like 12 per working day. And then there was a guy who I featured in Search of Excellence. His name was Tate Elder, and he was division general manager at 3M. He was not a youngster, and a few years later, he attended the seminar, and he had just gone through his retirement party. And I had been BSing about what we're BSing about, and he said, Tom, pulled me aside. He said, let me tell you why you're right. I said, okay, I can handle that. He said, at my retirement party, one of the guys who'd worked with me for a long time came up, and he almost had tears in his eyes. And he thanked me for a thank you note that I had sent him 10 years ago that he still had post of his cubicle.
Doesn't it sadden you though, Tom, doesn't it? It saddens me. It's a beautiful story, but it saddens me that he reacted to that, because it probably happened so infrequently in his career.
I will say, since you're talking to me from Augusta, I grew up in Baltimore, but my mother was Southern born. She was a Virginian. And I said to somebody, I'm quite sure my mother loved me, but the main thing she left behind was courtesy. And I said, you want a description of courtesy? We are unwrapping presents under the Christmas tree. And the aunts and the uncles sent them, and there's a pretty big pile of presents. We get halfway through. I said, halfway through the damn present opening thing, my mother sits me down and says, I want thank you notes to everybody who sent you a present. And it's a little exaggeration, but it is those little trivial things. And I've got some problems with what's happening south of the Mason-Dixon line, including in the place from which you are speaking to us.
Oh, we could talk.
Yeah, but that's not the point. The point is I said to somebody just because I've gotten in trouble, I was getting something done. Oh my God, where was I? Just a couple days ago. Oh, it was at a UPS store, and there was a youngish woman. She maybe in her 30s, and I said, "Thank you, ma'am." And I said, now listen. I said, sometimes I piss people off when I've said that. I've had a woman say back to me in response, "I am not that old." And
Right.
I said, this young woman, she said I wasn't offended. I said, "Look, listen, my mother's been dead for 16 years, but she's never died." And I said, "Look, I say thank you, ma'am, to 17, or thank you, sir, to 17-year-olds who've just gotten out of juvenile jail. It's what you do. And it's ma'am and it's sir." And that, I'm not arguing for that. And that is a little bit over the top, but it is those small acts of caring that, two things again, and I want to emphasize it. One, it gives you a better chance of getting into heaven instead of getting into hell. And two, it's better for business.
Yes.
There's this wonderful thing, and it's almost a good quitting point. David Brooks, the New York Times columnist, author, etc., had a column, and I think it comes out of one of his books, and he described the difference between two things. And the one thing is what he called the resume variables, and the other thing is what he called the eulogy variables.
Oh, I love that. That's in your book. Yep.
Yeah. The resume says he graduated from Cornell University with a 4.7 grade point average. He went into the Navy, he accomplished this. He was promoted 7 times, all the technical stuff. The eulogy virtues are exactly what they sound like. What do people say at your funeral? Yeah. And my 2 translations of that are, going back to the earlier comment, if you're heavy on the eulogy virtues, A, St. Peter may let you into the right place instead of sending you to hell. And B, guess what? Your bank account will have been bigger.
There you go.
And the second point, which is aimed at probably managers, but 26-year-old managers as well as 46-year-old managers, the day comes to an end. How's your eulogy virtue score for the day? Have you, just take, it's what you said in your other thing. Have you just pulled somebody aside who, was kind of in a grouchy mood at the meeting, and he's never usually in a grouchy mood. And I said, listen, be a grouch, it's perfectly fine with me, but is there anything going on I ought to know about? And not in terms of work, but I remember the great Duke basketball, is Coach K.
Yeah.
He had a 27-letter Polish name, and I'm sorry to say that I could not possibly correctly, but he's Coach K. And he said one time, I don't know what a regular season NCAA season is. I think it's probably 30 games. He said, "I never, ever, ever field the same team twice." Tom on April the 9th is not Tom on April 15th. He flunked an exam. He's got a girlfriend problem, whatever it is. And he also said, which I found highly amusing, he said, "I always invite my wife to the team meetings because she has a sixth sense of what's going on in Tom's head." And it's just that attention to where the person is. And one, you've been kind in mentioning my book, and there's one book I want to mention to you because you effectively referred to it. There's a guy by the name of Matthew Kelly, and he wrote a book called The Dream Manager. Yeah. And his point was, every employee who works for you has a dream. Yes. He said, forget Google. He said, suppose you are running a housekeeping department. He said, in that housekeeping department is a woman by the name of Anne, and she is a single mom and trying to raise 2 kids, and she's got 2 jobs. He said, here's what you can do for her. You can help her. He said she has a dream.
Yes.
And the dream is to just start out by taking a single course in a local community college. And he said, your job as a boss is dream fulfillment, and not big stuff, not put $1 million in the bank, but just be able to make some little step down the path and slightly up the hill. And then he said what, I've been saying for this whole time together. He said, and guess what? The housekeeping department will be 10 times more effective in its service. And as we know statistically, once we get back to F2F, he said, in a big hotel, who has the most face-to-face contact with the customer?
Absolutely. Hey, Tom, last thing I want to say is that you want to make some more money, because I think that we need to go into workplaces, the physical places, offices, go into the C-suite and say, why would your people want to come back to work? Yeah. Why would they want to stop working from home? And what are we going to be to make them go, I don't want to work at home anymore. I want this. And I don't think people have an answer right now. But that would be that'd be a very cool thing to do. And
it would be. I'm sure there are people who do it, and they do it better than me. But anyway, this has been an incredibly boring conversation.
I know. I feel the same way.
About taking care of people and saying thank you. And, we haven't provided anything that will immediately go on a spreadsheet. Nonetheless, it's been a great conversation. And I don't know what your ending is, but my ending is I am still blown away. And because I can read body language better than most people, I know you were speaking the truth. I am blown away by your introduction, and I will either never forget it or I will remember it for a long time. And this has been a real treat, and I thank you. And we obviously both care about the same thing, so we probably bored the hell out of everybody.
No, it's wonderful. And Shelley, we're apologizing to you, Shelley. One more thing, Tom. I have a friend. He's an acquaintance. He is the chief culture officer of 15.5, which is a progressive company out of San Francisco. He would love to have you on his podcast. Can I just say, talk to Shelley, or the best person to talk to?
Absolutely. Send Shelley an email with an email address for this gentleman. And because of the new book, we're doing a fair amount of this.
Wonderful.
And we will do our best to schedule.
He's the real deal. He's the real deal.
Plus, I lived in the Bay Area for 30 years. When the Silicon Valley world comes up, I'm there.
All the best to you, sir. And thank you for your time. I really enjoyed it. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Back at you.
Much. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Be well.
That was a rare treat in my life. Thank you for joining me with Tom Peters. Next time we're going to be talking to Paul Higdon. He's an author and he's the founder of Little Boost Children's Fund. Paul wrote the book Hope in a Future: Life, Survival, and Renewal on the Streets of an African Slum. We'll also be joined by John Mina. He plays a major role in Hope in a Future, and we get to talk to him along with Paul. So do join us. If you want more bookcasts, you can find them in audio form. www.anchor.fm/Doug-Fine. And if you'd like to look at my website and see what I might be able to do for you, it's www.DougJFine.com. Again, as always, thanks for joining us on the D.FINED Engagement BookCast, and I hope to see you again next time with Paul Higdon. Bye-bye for now.